Okay, welcome to another episode of Fix It with Crunk. This is a single handle American Standard faucet for a bathtub that was installed in the 1960s. And this faucet leaks. Now, this is a new faucet, a new spout, but the problem to the leak happens in the valve, which is behind this unit. So first thing that we do is we notice that there is a small set screw underneath the knob. So we're going to take an Allen wrench and we are going to remove this. So I'm going to do that. Once the Allen screw is removed, it can come off. This part will pull right off. Then we take note that we got two screws on the bottom here, and we will take, they're very long screws, so we're going to take our cordless drill and we're going to remove these. Once those screws are out, the whole escutcheon plate can come off. We'll put that to the side. You can see the valving in there. Now, you want to make sure that your water is turned off before you do any of this, because you don't want to be spraying water down inside your walls or anything. But you can see, if you look in there very closely, you can see there's two slotted brass screws in there. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take a slotted screwdriver and remove those. Midway during the process here, you can see the screws in there are getting loose. You want to remove the whole arrangement, screws and all, out through the opening. You can see that's what the unit looks like. It has hot and cold inlets on the back. But you'll notice in here on the valve, there's some O-rings on there. Now these are flat O-rings, so you want to be careful that those O-rings don't get lost. So we'll take those out and put them aside. You'll also see that this center unit comes out all the way. All right, focus for me. So this comes out. I'll put that aside too. What we're going to do is we're going to get these O-rings out. I'm going to use a little hook pick. And we're going to just carefully grab each one of them. And we're going to lay them. And that's the valve body in there. That's not where our problem is. The leak is actually occurring where the valves seat inside the part I removed. Okay, so here's the valve body. And what we're going to do is we're going to use a wrench to take these off. They're very, very tight. Okay. Now you'll notice on these that there's an O-ring on that as well. So we'll just put those aside. And inside both of these, this one fell out. Inside both of these, there's a little spring. And on the spring is a little valve assembly. But the important thing that's going on here are these tiny little O-rings inside here. Because what happens is, when this is engaged by the spout, these little stems that are sticking off of the springs, here are the springs, these little stems that are sticking off, they move from one side to the other based on how this is turning. And when they move one side to the other, it causes those little stems to change the position of the plunger against that little O-ring. So what we're going to try and do is we're going to try to replace those little O-rings in there, those little seals. Okay, so you can see in there those two gaskets, and they require a hex wrench, an Allen wrench, because they remove from the top. And I believe that 5/16 is what we have. Okay. Because this is an interesting assembly. These little parts are seated in there, and they can be removed like that. So you can see that these have an integrated washer on the top of this. So that's not able to be replaced separately. So what we're going to do is we're going to see if these can be cleaned up and compared to other ones that I had. So we'll see. So we were able to buy online replacements. So these are the replacements. Brand new rubber tops. You can see the old ones are kind of worn. So we'll see if that does the trick. Okay, so I seated them in there using the 5/16 Allen wrench to try and get them seated and screwed in. You want to make sure that you don't cross thread them, so be very careful. Okay, so I got the valve seats seated in there, see them? And then these plungers go in there. Now the way this works again is the spring holds this little circular disc against the this little circular disc here against the washer that is integral to that part of the unit. And whenever that valve is turned to the hot or the cold, it allows that plunger, or that shaft, I should say, to migrate the migrate the stem to one side so that the water for cold or the water for hot can be introduced into the valve and then down into the spout. So then we're going to take a little time to be very careful about putting these plugs back in. You see how they compress that spring inside. So they need to have a little bit of pressure on that spring. And actually, you know what? I might just stretch that spring out just a little bit to see if maybe it just needs a little extra oomph against the seal. I might just do that. You don't want to overdo it. Maybe just stretch it a little bit. And then we put the plugs back in and tighten it up. When you put them back together, when you put the this valve assembly back onto the part that's inside the wall, you want to make sure to put those O-rings back. And these are the O-rings. Remember, when we took them out, these are flat O-rings. So flat O-rings often go when you have metal to metal mating surfaces. Okay. I just want to make sure these are tight. Okay, so I put a little O-ring lubricant on there and popped them in just with my fingers. Made sure that the surfaces were clean. You know, I actually used a magic eraser to wipe down just with a single pass on those. Then I'll put the valve back in and align the screws that we took out before. Okay, there's the unit completely back together. All right. I'm going to put the escutcheon plate back on. You don't want to do it too tight. We do want to also seal this with silicone caulk afterwards. Now you'll notice that there's a hole inside of the shaft. You have to align that hole with the faucet handle. So you align that hole with the set screw and you turn the set screw in. So I turned the water back on, the water source back on, and we still have a little bit of a drip going on, looks like, but not as bad as it was before. Well, turns out I was wrong, still dripping. Well, part of the problem is we want to make sure that this water doesn't splatter all over the place, and when it dries it leaves calcium deposits. So we're going to jury rig a little a little catcher to direct the funnel or direct the water directly to the drain. Ta-da! We put a little automobile funnel in there with a loop of wire over the spout, and it keeps it from splashing all over the tub. Well, Kronk didn't really fix it this time, but made a valiant effort. We'll give another try next time. Thanks for tuning in. This is Fix It with Kronk.